We all know how protective Nintendo can be of their franchises, especially Mario. This has been made very clear in recent years. If you're making something based off of Mario, chances are Nintendo will come knocking if it gains enough traction. That's probably why, to me at least, knockoff Mario products are amazing. They show just how much the creators of them simply do not care. Down with the big N. Let's put Mario on a restaurant sign. Super Mario is one of the world's top-selling, top-performing, most iconic series in history. And if a character is successful, they're bound to be used by bootleggers. This can lead to some pretty great results. Even those with approved licenses to use Mario on their products are faced with strict regulations and limits, as is important to have for any top-level franchise. However, none of those restrictions apply with fakes, so the sky's the limit. Nintendo would never approve of Gangsta Mario clothing, and yet here we are. There are of course your standard ripoffs, such as our iconic heroes Dino and Martin, which just copy an existing official Mario product, with their own spin on things of course. My favorite fakes though are those that are completely original. Unofficial Mario goods come in all shapes and sizes, and today we'll be covering it all. Toys, games, food, doctor's offices? It's time to take a look at some of the craziest unlicensed and bootleg Super Mario items from around the world. And with all of that said, here we go! Let's start things off, well, as standard as they get with bootlegs. As they're one of the most popular forms of Mario toys, plushes are some of the most commonly faked Mario items. Man, where do we even begin here? There are so many official Mario plushes out there, but even with the incredible number of products in existence, some characters never get the official plush treatment. Because of this, bootleggers have taken the chance to flood the world with the characters less fortunate, like Toadsworth. This one is based off of the Sine Mario Party 5 plush of Toad. You'll quickly notice that a lot of the bootleg Mario plushes out there are copies of Sine ones, as they're the most popular Mario plush maker. Along with Toadsworth, this Toadette was made long before there was an official one of her, so it was also very popular. Rosalina's first mass-produced plush was also a bootleg, though you could probably guess that by looking at her. Hey, at least she's not the Daisy that's based off of the Mario Party Peach, where they swapped her eyes for some reason and then never fixed it. You can't have Rosalina without a Luma, right? Well, there's actually never been an official Luma plush, so for many years, bootleggers were making a killing off of these. If anything, these bootlegs of characters that haven't gotten official merch yet show there is a market for them. I honestly really like a lot of these original fakes. I'd never buy them, but their hearts are in the right place. Bootleg Zelda plushes are almost all complete garbage, but there's one of Vaati from the Minish Cap that's really good. He's another character that doesn't get much of anything, especially not a plush. When it comes to Mario bootlegs, no plush set is safe. Sine, they got them in spades. Ban Presto, there are more fake Casino Luigi plushes than you can imagine. Not even Kelly Toy is immune, what with their whole terrorist Lewis situation. While the majority of unofficial plushes only exist to fool you into thinking it's a genuine release, some do try to put their own twist on things. Some even expand the original official range. For example, they only ever made an official Mario Galaxy plush of Mario holding a mushroom, but here's a fake Luigi holding a 1-up mushroom. Boo Mario? Come on, we need Boo Luigi. This Frog Mario is pretty sweet, as are these Raccoon Mario and Luigi. A lot of bootleggers have made Luigi versions of Mario Odyssey plushes, so if you want a Luigi with Cappy, there you go. Baby Wario? Baby Waluigi? See, clearly not all bootlegs are so bad. If there's a hole in the market, like say, a serious lack of blue Chain Chomp plushes, fakers will be there to save the day. Probably the most faked Mario plush in existence is this early Sine Yoshi, either the Super Mario Sunshine one or the one from the Mario Party set. This guy's pattern has been used for so many things. You can get him in tons of colors, sizes, fakes of straight up the original, but come on, let's kick it up a notch. In need of a Yoshi pillow pet? Have you been living under a rock or something? Here he is. Society simply wouldn't function if not for the Blimp Yoshi plush. This one is sitting on an attached DS stylus. I mean, I don't know why you would need something like this, but just in case you do, it exists. Here's one of true value, a graduation Yoshi. Perfect for gifts, but also one of the classiest plushes ever made. Bootleg Yoshi plushes always have this weird look to them. Like, yeah, it is Yoshi, but it's not all there. Pretty great stuff though, I quite enjoy this huge one from Mexico. Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear you over the sounds of my Luigi car. Here's this awesome set of strangely outfitted Mario and Luigis, complete with stock photos of models posing with them. Now that's a line of work I'd like to get into. Some bootlegs can be pretty well done, they're not all Pink-Nosed Bowser. When it comes to original patterns, yeah, we've got early ones like the Toadsworth and the not-so-great Rosalina, but dare I say they've gotten better at it. These Bowser variants, for example, are pretty fantastic. They've made all of these just off of this Cine Bowser. I really like this extremely dapper wedding suit Bowser and especially this King Koopa. Now that's a character design that isn't being used by Nintendo anymore, so for fans of the Super Show, this is pretty much the only option. It's cases like these where I appreciate them existing. But then we have ones like Dry Bowser Jr. and it's like, why did you even make that? There are some bootlegs that try to make the plush into more of a household item. Like this Luigi holding a mushroom is actually a phone holder, and it doesn't stop there. This one has an even larger mushroom that's a tissue box. While some of these can be pretty cool, you definitely don't want to actually buy them. Most of these unofficial plushes have no real worth and are very cheaply made. Same rules as any bootleg item. You never know what they're made of, and they usually look really sloppy. Despite that, it's crazy to look at how well some of these bootlegs sell. Since they usually undercut the official item, a lot of unknowing buyers get these instead. I once saw a listing of a Bowser Jr. that was clearly unofficial that said like 2,000 plus items sold. Think of how much materials are wasted on just those alone. Thankfully, it's usually pretty easy to tell between fake and official when it comes to Mario plushes. It's also pretty interesting just seeing what bootleggers come up with and what characters they make. Now these examples aren't Mario, but they're so weird I just have to mention them. The Cine Pikmin 2 plush set is pretty popular, but the Olimar and Louie from the set were made in fairly limited quantities, making them pretty rare nowadays. That set came out around 2004, but nearly 15 years later, bootlegs closely based off of them started showing up. How did that happen? Or how about this? Some bootleggers try to be really fast with their plush making so they can beat the official items to market. When Pokemon Sword and Shield were being hyped up, plushes of the starters started showing up for sale, obviously being unofficial. Now, making fakes of the starters is one thing, but if you could release early plushes of their evolutions too, imagine the money you'd make! That's why this plush exists, but hang on a minute. That isn't Scorbunny's official evolution. That's because this was made and released before it was even revealed. This design comes from one of the many fan mock-ups made before the game's release. It was lucky enough to grab the attention of the people behind the unofficial Pokemon plush ring and be made into a product you can still buy today. It's insane how some things just line up like that. Despite how bad most bootleg plushes are, I'll give props for some of the character choices. I admit, Diddy Kong Monkey Mario is pretty cool, but as interesting as these are, your money should be going to something more worthwhile. They're certainly fun to look at and talk about, but only from a distance. You probably wouldn't be able to handle Diddy Kong Mario anyway. Fake Mario plushes are definitely one of, if not the most common forms of Mario forgery, but figures aren't too far behind. Some try to mimic official releases, some are praying Mantis Mario. This comes from a set of 14 animal-based Mario power-up figures. These have been around for a pretty long time, at least since 2014, and they feature designs that Nintendo would never approve of. You could get them loose or boxed. At least these are pretty creative. Most fake Mario figures just rip off existing sculpts. Over in places like Argentina, you can find this range of Super Mario Run figures. Yeah, usually when designing packaging for phony stuff, the designers just pick whatever is relevant at the time, or whatever comes up first with a Google search. These ones started popping up around 2017, so Mario Run was fairly new at the time. And despite such a weird logo choice, the packaging looks pretty okay. Most of the figures here look awful, so I guess they knew they had to put their all into the packaging. This one's a classic, Mario Bath Toys. These ones are simple water toys, and they look pretty good. They definitely fooled me for a while when I was younger. Speaking of being fooled, one of the first ever pieces of merchandise I bought with my own money was this set of tiny fake Mario figures that I got off of Amazon in 2013. These were all over the internet back then and were so cheap. You get the figures and the blocks, how could I say no? I hope that seller is enjoying my hard-earned swag bucks money. While we now have official LEGO Mario sets, let it be known, bootleggers did it first. When you're talking about bootleg Mario figures, you have to mention Popco, or Goldie, or Banpresto? Okay, so in the late 2000s, the company Popco released this set of 5 collectible Mario figures in America. These were very popular when they were released, but they weren't entirely original. These figures were actually localized versions of these Japanese figures by the company Banpresto, which were first released as prize figures in 2004 with Mario Party branding. These figures are pretty much perfect replicas of how the characters looked in the GameCube and Wii era, so instead of making their own potentially inferior figures, Popco worked out a deal to release them in America. This is pretty common with Mario merchandise, with lots of Japanese releases being localized by different companies for release in America, the UK, and more. With all of these releases, the figures ended up being very recognizable and hot sellers, which in turn made cheap bootlegs of them very popular as well. The range of official figures released was also pretty vast, which meant lots of sculpts were already made ready to be faked. However, bootleggers weren't content with just these, and much like the plush fakes, made lots of additional characters that never had official counterparts. Toadsworth, always a fan favorite, different colored Toads and Yoshis, and even entirely new characters like the Koopalings. These sculpts, though, were still usually based off of other existing figures, such as this totally fake Waluigi being based off of this Bandai Mario Party 4 keychain figure of him. I want to say it looks like the bootleggers interpreted it as him holding a bomb, but he's actually holding a booze crystal ball, one of the items from the game, as seen in the render the original keychain is based off of. This set was also used to create this Donkey Kong holding a hammer, likely made by the same fakers as the Waluigi. Now, try to wrap your head around this one. Back when Popco first showed off their Mario figures, they weren't so obviously taken from Banpresto, instead having unique sculpts. I honestly kinda wish they kept them looking like this. It would have made the line stand out a lot more. But the reason I bring these up is that the prototype Donkey Kong is in this pose, giving a thumbs up. While there are plenty fakes of the standard DK, there are also fakes that look suspiciously like the prototype. Perhaps the bootleggers got a hold of a sample of the prototype one and faked it as well? It's entirely possible. So many bootleg companies from all over the world have dabbled at one point or another in the Popco Mario fake industry, leading to some truly bizarre figures. Some of these can be pretty rad, like this set where they gave the characters instruments. Luigi on the sax. Thanks, I guess? Even today, new sculpts based off of these are being made. They were stagnant for a bit, but when games like Super Mario Maker and Mario Odyssey rejuvenated the series' popularity, they kicked it right back into full gear, especially given that Mario wears different outfits in those games, justifying easy variants, a bootlegger's dream. One of the most common types of these are these so-called supersized figure collection ones, the ones that come in this style of box and stand around 10 inches tall. Many of these have now been upscaled and released in this format, marketing it as now a special deluxe figure. Some of these are a bit more creative. Thumbs Up DK makes a shocking appearance, and how about this Toad? This is also of course the same style of packaging our beloved Snoot Boy came in as well. Honestly, these ones will probably be made for as long as Mario is popular. You'll probably see this Bowser until the end of time. While unofficial, most of these figures look decently passable, besides one that, well, might stand out just a little bit, this Princess Peach. For some reason, most bootleg Peach figures look strange, they can never get her face right, but this one definitely takes the cake. It's Peach, sitting on a mushroom, while pulling up one of her stockings. Now, this isn't an original idea by the bootleggers. You probably could have guessed it by now, but this figure is based off of very specific fan art of Peach. Now, I'm debating if I should go into detail here, but hey, you should always credit the artist, shouldn't you? This artwork was drawn by a DeviantArt user named Sigurd Hosenfeld, who was active on the site from 2004 to 2015. And on October 6, 2007, they uploaded this piece titled, In the Dressing Room. Someone over there in the bootleg lab was doing their job very well, cracking away on DeviantArt looking at Peach fan art when they must have stumbled upon this artwork. I imagine they just immediately thought, dang, we gotta make a figure of this. Now, the artwork is really well drawn, but the figure doesn't do it justice at all. The real pressing issue here is that Peach comes with 2 shoes as accessories, but only 1 stocking. Why does she even come with shoes? Am I right, fellas? Well, it's because in the original artwork she has her heels near her, and the creators of the figure knew they had to stay true to that. When this figure was first released, it came in a different, unique box that actually straight up used the artwork. I wonder if the artist owns one of these. Whenever I see stuff like this, I immediately wonder how the artist would feel about it. I mean, there's gotta be some level of flattery, right? Your art was good enough that these people either mistook it for official art or just thought it was good enough to deserve a figure. That stands for something. If I ever become an internet artist, please, bootleggers, you have full permission to just rip it off. Put the thumbnail of this video on a mug you can buy on Wish or something. I made a tongue-in-cheek Jimmy Neutron and Sonic 1 ROM hack a few years ago. Go ahead and slap that onto a cartridge like you so willingly do with Vector in Sonic 1. This original box has since been replaced by a more generic Popco box, which is less interesting, but it makes the figure look even more bizarre. On the back of the genuine supersize boxes, they show the other characters included in the range. On the bootlegs, they tend to throw in whoever they want, including characters who don't even have figures. On the back of this Peaches box, it shows Mario, a PNG of the figure itself and not just artwork for some reason, and then a question mark. Who knows what DeviantArt they can steal from next? The box also has the Banpresto logo and the Nintendo seal of quality. You can probably tell that those aren't authentic. This Peach is probably one of the most infamous fake Mario figures out there, and I totally get why. The fact it even exists is a mystery of itself. I'd say that's the best part about it. It means that one of the people working on these bootleg Mario figures was on DeviantArt, doing whatever one could be doing on that website, saw this and thought, they needed to make it happen, and boy, they did. Mario is a franchise so iconic that sometimes, just the franchise's iconography is all the bootleggers need. Some of these tread the very fine line between knockoff and parody, but come on, it's pretty obvious where the inspiration for these designs came from. I love businesses that just use unedited artwork in their logos. Take me out to King Kong Wings. Mario's. I don't just play games, I can make pizzas too. Like, what? This is pretty common actually. Why hire someone to design a new character or mascot for your company when you could just slap a picture of Donkey from Shrek onto your logo and call it a day? When you think of businesses using licensed characters illegitimately, you probably think of pretty low-tier stuff. Small restaurants, hair salons, ice cream trucks. You probably don't think of a doctor's office. And yet, here we are, living in a world where Dr. Amigo exists.
¿Es la influencia una amenaza para mí y mi familia?
Dr. Amigo is a family clinic center in Houston, Texas, which would have been completely unremarkable apart from the fact that for multiple years, the business proudly used a ripoff of Dr. Mario for their mascot. Their logo, for example, has an edit of artwork from Dr. Mario 64, where Mario has been converted to Amigo. Look at that off-centered stock apple on his clipboard. Now, it would have been one thing if they only used him in the logo. Many businesses have done stuff like that. But they took it up a few notches by having an actual company mascot costume of Dr. Amigo himself. Well, I say mascot costume, but it's really just a head. A really creepy looking head. Clearly, it's based off of a Mario costume. That nose and mustache are unmistakable. Bootleg Mario character costumes are not uncommon, but to see one used like this, trying to be passed off as an original character, is truly something. Its most famous appearance, and what really put Dr. Amigo on the map in general, is this public access commercial that was uploaded onto YouTube on November 13th, 2017. The original upload has since been unlisted, but it has thankfully been preserved. The channel that originally uploaded the ad has posted lots of commercials from the Houston area, so the channel's not connected to the company, they just hosted the ad. You do have to wonder why they unlisted it though. The ad itself is 30 seconds in length and is very bizarre. A standard doctor's office commercial, only with, Dr. Amigo. The most iconic part of the commercial, though, would be when Dr. Amigo, your trustworthy doctor, takes out a fairly large syringe and injects it into his patient. Why would they include this? Needles scare almost anyone, let alone huge ones. I think it's great they use the actual costume in the commercial. They clearly put a lot of effort into their branding. This costume has also been used at various events advertising the business. Not gonna lie, it would be pretty cool to meet the actual Dr. Amigo. Now, if you thought that's where the story ended, strap in. Back in 2012, the jingle used in the commercial was uploaded by what looks like the official Dr. Amigo YouTube account. This is already interesting enough because it would seemingly date the production of that commercial back to 2012. I guess it wasn't uploaded online until years later. But the really interesting thing here is the only other upload on the account, titled Dr. Amigo Family Clinic Jingle 2. A different song than the one used in the widely known commercial. Seeing this, I immediately realized there must be more Dr. Amigo content out there than what's commonly known. And if the video you're watching right now isn't a perfect archive of all things Dr. Amigo, what is it really worth? So I went looking. On the channel that originally posted the infamous commercial in 2017, it turns out that in 2015, they posted a 15-second commercial with entirely different footage, mostly advertising how great their deals were. There it was, but it still used the song we know, so more must be out there. That's when I stumbled onto the Dr. Amigo Google page, which has a multi-year spanning archive of tons of media created by the Doc Migo team, including the following. And there it was, an entire 1-minute long commercial featuring the mysterious second theme and some more sweet mascot costume action. After seeing this, I went through the rest of their feed and unfortunately didn't find too much of note. There was this one post using this nurse character that I thought was the Peach of the Dr. Amigo universe. Then I searched 3D nurse clip art on Google and found it, so yeah. Hey, if they're not above using stock art, why didn't they just use it for their mascot? There were a few more commercial variants, but none substantially different than the two we know. Well, that I know of at least. You can get a Dr. Amigo membership card, that's pretty great. And as for other additional Dr. Amigo content, a series of videos from 2012 exists detailing various aspects of the building, titled Dr. Amigo 1, 2, 3, and so on. It's true, the Dr. Amigo lore runs surprisingly deep. Check out this advert for a huge giveaway, ran by Dr. Amigo and another business, one I can only assume somehow befriended and contained Amigo. Eagle-eyed fans will notice that the costume used here is different than the one seen in the main commercials, probably an earlier one as he looks even weirder. All of this makes you wonder, how old is this company? How long did they get away with using Mario? Well, those jingle uploads and the official Facebook page date back to 2012, which is probably a lot earlier than most people thought. And you know what? All of this would have been totally excusable if they just didn't mess up the coloring of their logo. Check this out. If you look closely at the logo, you'll notice the G in Amigo for some reason has a different colored outline. They just messed up. Though I think a messed up outline is the least of Dr. Amigo's concerns. In early 2019, the commercial and the business as a whole became well known online. Obviously as a joke. For any normal business, any publicity online is usually great news. But for businesses using copyrighted material, it can, cause some issues. Shortly after the commercial became a huge joke online, the company quietly updated their logo, replacing their fake Mario with a more generic doctor. They even updated it on their actual buildings and signs. Either Nintendo came knocking for a checkup, or they changed it out of fear of what could happen. And you know what? Yeah, that's better. I trust them now. Even though it lacks the Mario look now, the company is thankfully still in operation. Don't worry though, even with the new art, it seems the mascot costume is still being used. As funny as all of this is, this one is really strange to me. What were they thinking? This is the type of thing you'd expect from Mr. Bro's Restaurante, not a doctor's office. It really shows that your company isn't that competent. Using modified art taken from another source illegally for stuff like a restaurant or especially a medical center just rubs me the wrong way. How much can you really trust Dr. Amigo? They're probably fine. They're still in business and have good feedback on Facebook, and they have nothing but glowing praise on Google, so clearly they're fine. Really, if they just made custom artwork from the start, there never would have been any issues here. It's not like this is a cheap operation, it's a doctor's office. I almost feel bad in a way. I feel like those in charge of the branding were just misguided or didn't realize it could get them into any issues. With that said, I hope they're doing well nowadays, in their post-Mario years. It seems like they are, as there are actually 4 active locations all across Texas. Still though, using a phony Mario doesn't make you seem too trustworthy. You know what Dr. Amigo would prescribe you with? The Wario pill. On June 18th, 2018, a 27-year-old man was arrested in Tokushima for possession of 50 ecstasy tablets, with the majority of them being shaped like Wario. Now, this wasn't the first time the man had been caught up in a drug offense, but it was probably the first time Wario was involved. Over the past few years, these character-shaped drugs have been increasing in popularity, especially in Japan. But over there, drugs are treated as an even worse offense than they are here in America. But it looks like that doesn't stop some people from getting their Wario fix. Apparently, this wasn't even the first time someone had been caught carrying Wario-shaped dubs. Wario's a lot of things, but he's no drug user. Obviously, this is hilarious, but it's also pretty sad. Imagine going to jail because you were carrying Wario. However, he's not alone. Over in the UK, a 20-year-old man was arrested for selling drugs shaped like Donkey Kong. This is a global issue. How could we forget about Mario edibles? Yeah, I'll stick with the Gangsta Mario t-shirt for now. Fun fact, did you know that the Sega Genesis just sorta never died in Russia? Around the world, different regions have completely different video game scenes. If you've only ever exposed yourself to, say, the North American or Japanese markets, there's a lot to learn. For example, the Sega Genesis and especially Master System were extremely popular over in Brazil. And because of that, the company Tectoy, with license from Sega, continues to release new models of them over there even today. This is mostly due to the differing economies of the regions. In Brazil, it's more likely the average consumer would buy an 8 or 16-bit console as opposed to a much more expensive modern one. Tectoy's consoles are completely licensed, but a majority of the consoles like these are unofficial. Over in Russia, the situation is very similar. The Dendy is a Taiwanese clone console based off of the Nintendo Famicom, which was very popular in Russia. Despite its popularity, it was completely unauthorized by Nintendo. With this console, it's how games like Samari came to popularity and found a market. The Dendy set the stage for unlicensed consoles in Russia. By 1994, over 3 million units of it had been sold. Jumping to modern times, the many bootleg Genesis or Mega Drive consoles are still moving units over there. And get this, there are teams that still develop new games for it, all completely unauthorized by Sega. Most of these new age Genesis classics are hacks of existing games with popular licenses plastered onto them. The game's already unlicensed, might as well go the full stop and use someone else's franchise too. What, you've never played Despicable Me 2 on the Sega Genesis? Now, who exactly makes these games? That's a bit of a mystery. history. The leading developer appears to be a company named BMB, possibly pronounced VMV, going by, Russian. They appear to be responsible for a majority of the iconic Russian Genesis bootleg games. They've made hits such as Shrek, Kung Fu Panda, Angry Birds in Russia, Ben 10, and many more. Their games range from fairly original games to ports to hacks that simply replace graphics. For example, it's rumored that Despicable Me game was made by them, and that game is a hack of the game Bubble and Squeak. Some of their most well-known games are, of course, Mario games. 2 in fact, Mario 3 Around the World and Mario 4 A Space Odyssey. These games were developed and released sometime around the early 2010s, and are about what you'd expect from bootleg Mario games. They're side-scrollers with very bad physics, the level design is basic, but the graphics look nice, and the music is absolutely bangin'. The music used, much like everything else in the game, is stolen from various sources, mostly from programs used to create Genesis-compatible music. The developers probably saw that these song demos were already done and just used them in the game. There is a Mario song, but the rest are mostly demos and sample tracks, including the song you're hearing now, whose actual name is Space Standart, and was composed by an artist named Shuru, who actually created the program used to create Genesis music, named TFM Music Maker. Many of the demos from this program, as well as one called VGM Music Maker, have shown up in BMB's games, so that makes sense. I understand why they stole these tracks though. They're great! Thank you, bootleggers, for making these more well-known. The music for each level is chosen randomly, and there's a pretty good variety. While the gameplay isn't great, the music honestly makes these a pretty good experience. Also, these aren't hacks of anything, they're original games. Well, I guess Mario 4 is a hack of Mario 3, but it's more like just a continuation. These are definitely some of the best Mario bootlegs for the Genesis. Which yeah, isn't saying too much when your competition is Super Mario World 64, but hey, that game has the Jeopardy theme as one of its level background songs, so that is some pretty steep competition. There are some weird aspects of these though. They have original stories told in their openings which are bizarre. Around the World just shows this strange Egyptian Mario when you start the game. And also, try to not die too often. Not only will you get sick of the death sound quickly, not only do you hear a stock sound effect of a man screaming when Mario falls down a pit, but if you die too many times, you'll be greeted to one of the most infamous parts of these games, their game over screens. In Mario 3, the continue screen shows this. Artwork of a piranha plant monster who looks to have just killed Mario. It shows blood. The actual game over screen is a bit more tame, but the text when translated reads, "You failed to save the princess. Without the princess, the Mushroom Kingdom is doomed." Way to go, Mario! Mario 4's continue screen is really gruesome, showing a piranha plant bursting out of Mario's chest while a blooper suffocates him. If you foolishly choose to not continue, the game over screen shows Mario's skull with the text reading, "Mario died, and with him dead, his hopes of saving the Mushroom Kingdom." You have to question the motives behind these games. They know kids are going to be playing them, right? The biggest market for bootleg games, just like for any bootleg industry, surely are parents buying a product for their kid. What happens when the kid can't beat this really hard game and sees this? And yeah, these games are very poorly made, so you will be dying and seeing these screens a lot. However, these are nothing compared to the game over screens of some of the team's other releases. Their Ben 10 game shows Ben with lots of cuts and blood, and their Felix the Cat game, I'm not sure I can even show that one. The artwork used for these are unsurprisingly stolen. With that said, if you already drew that art of Mario dead, you'll probably find some happiness in knowing that your artwork spooked some kids in Russia. What a world we live in. Now, Mario is Mr. Video after all, so unlicensed Mario games come by the dozen no matter what console you're looking at. We've got the famous ones like Kart Fighter, Mario 7, there are some less famous but still iconic ones, like this Kirby's Adventure pirate hack called Wario Land 2 which replaces Kirby with Wario, thus making it a perfect video game. Back in the day, there was this trend where bootleggers thought, hey, let's take this popular game from a recent console and demake it onto previous hardware. That idea is where Samari came from, and the same team that made that, Hummer Team, made this, Super Mario World, for the NES. Apart from the bootleg standards like poor physics and music, this is a surprisingly faithful port of the game. This has since become one of the most famous examples of bootleg games out there. Hummer Team were really cranking out bangers back in the day. This one showed up in 1995. Let's see, there's Super Mario 4 for the Game Boy, Mario DX for the Game Boy Advance, Mario 3 Special is one that's always on my mind. Man, if only Nintendo listened to their fans and put out what we really want. Then we have the modern equivalent of all of these, bootleg apps. There are so many of these, but I'd say out of all of them, my heart belongs to Crazy Miner. It's great to see that even today, with how advanced our world is, bootleg Mario games will always exist. And there you have it, an overview of some of the craziest bootleg Mario stuff out there. What we've covered today though doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of this stuff. Mario's such an instantly recognizable character. Who wouldn't want to use him on their products? However, there are people out there who create unlicensed Mario products out of pure love for the franchise. Take fan games for example. Super Mario Bros. X, Super Mario Crossover, the many outstanding hacks of various Mario games, these are all pure passion projects made by hardcore fans. But sometimes Nintendo doesn't see it that way. The company is very strict with how their characters are represented, and if they see it as just, they'll take action, even if they're taking action on what was meant to be a harmless fan project. It's in their full legal right to take down projects they view as misuses of their IPs. Technically, even fan games are illegal. It's just that unlike most of what we talked about today, they're often not for profit, so there's not much reason to take them down. Sure, they are using Mario's image, but it's clearly in a positive light. If people want to make projects with these characters and not even see a cent from it, it makes Nintendo and their franchises look great. They have stuff so beloved that people would do this. It's all positive, really. And you know what? Technically speaking, this video is no different. Would you have clicked on this video if it weren't about a franchise you were already into like Mario? I'm using Nintendo's work and their IP for my own benefit. Sure, I made this video out of love for the series and to chronicle all of this weird stuff, but technically, I'm using the Mario brand in my own product without Nintendo's permission. I myself am no better than the Peach Feet figure people. Well, okay, let's not go to that extreme, but it is interesting to think about. There is certainly a line to be drawn between fan work and bootleg items, but it's often up to the moral judgment of those in charge to decide if taking action is necessary. This video is probably going to be okay. Dr. Amigo, though, not too sure about him. You know what? Donkey Kong was originally planned to be a game based off of Popeye, but was reworked into using original characters instead. Clearly this whole video is discussing bootleg Popeye merchandise. How about parodies? Where do they fall? When it comes to bootlegs, it can be pretty tricky deciding what's worth getting worked up over, but it seems they're here to stay, for better or for worse. Bootleggers do what Nintendo don't, even if most of the time, there's a good reason Nintendo doesn't do whatever that is.